up everyone, it's your girl Katie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be answering UCI first year questions that I think that it would be really helpful to know. I know for my first year, if I knew these things, it would have been really helpful, so I hope you watching this, it would be very beneficial to know. These questions are from people that have left comments on my videos or contacted me through Instagram, so I do read all the questions and comments left on my videos, so if you have any questions or anything you want to say or anything you want to know about UCI or anything in general, feel free to contact me through the comment section or at my Instagram at KatieMia, and I usually respond to all my comments, especially if they're questions, and if you DM me, I will contact you back as soon as possible. So if you have any more questions, leave a comment or contact me over DM and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, if you are looking for a specific topic or question that I'm going to answer in this video, there will be timestamps in the description box below about different topics that I'm going to be talking about, so you don't have to watch the whole video if you're only looking for one certain thing. So those will be down in the description box below. So without further ado, let's get on in the video. So the first topic I'll be talking about is housing, and specifically on-campus housing, which is the dorms. And there are two housing communities, Middle Earth and Mesa Court. Mesa Court is closer to the humanities side, and then Middle Earth is closer to the social sciences and engineering side of campus. And in terms of picking between Mesa and Middle, it really depends on your preference and also your classes and majors, because if you live in Middle Earth, it would be easier to go to the engineering classes and also all those science labs because it's on this side of campus. And in Mesa Court, if you're a humanities major or art major, the art school is really close to Mesa Court, and the humanities is right across the bridge from Mesa Court. So depending on what you want to do in terms of like walking to classes and getting to class on time, you might want to consider the walking distance between your housing community and your classes. So another difference between Mesa Court and Middle Earth is how you get to campus. For Mesa Court, you have to walk through the art school and then cross the bridge to get to main campus, whereas Middle Earth is right on campus, so you just have to get on the ring road, and then all your classes, all the auditoriums and buildings start from there. That's another thing to consider picking between Mesa Court and Middle Earth. Now, there's a difference in both housing communities where there are towers and classic dorms. The classic dorms are at tops 3 stories tall, and they're like an apartment building almost, and it's called a hall, whereas the hall in the towers is the whole floor. It's still like an apartment, but it's kind of, in my opinion, more like an office because it's usually a long hallway with like the dorms on the side. Both housing communities do have a housing office where you can pick up mail and rent out study rooms. Both housing communities do have study areas, like designated study areas only for the housing residents. So only those residents can use them. They can you can let in friends and everything, but to get in there, you need to have a key from a resident that lives in that housing community. So in terms of amenities that are offered in the housing communities, as of right now, Mesa Court has a rec center that is open for Mesa Court students only. They have a mini gym, and then they also have like this cool hangout side where there's a pool table, there's ping pong tables, there's also TVs in there where you could watch movies, you could play games. Middle Earth has something similar to that. It's called Pippin's, but right now, because it's still under construction, it's not open, and I have no idea when it's actually going to open, because even before I actually lived in Middle Earth, there's never been a set date of when it's going to be done. So hopefully by next year, it will be open for students to use, but as of right now, it's not. Also, in terms of amenities, Mesa Court has a sand volleyball court and also a basketball court. Middle Earth actually only has a basketball court. They don't have the volleyball court anymore because that's where the towers are. Now, in comparing the towers of Mesa Court and Middle Earth, the towers at Mesa Court have the anteatery at the bottom. They have is it the housing office? They have the mail room under the tower as well. What else? Also on the bottom of the tower, they have the rec center. And so Mesa Court has 3 towers, and the 3 towers have 6 floors in a way. So the first floor is usually just the lobby, and it's taken up by the anteatery or the rec room. All the dorms start from the 2nd floor and go up to the 6th floor. So technically there's only like 5 floors, but there are 3 towers. In the Middle Earth towers, there are 5 floors. The first floor is actually just the lobby and it's taken up by Brandywine. The second floor is all the study space and also the Middle Earth Housing Office. That's going to be there next year. And then the dorms start from the 3rd floor, go to the 7th floor. So it is still like 5 floors that are only dorms. Also about Middle Earth Towers is that the towers are going to be triples and quads next year. And then in Mesa Court, they're only going to be quads. So if you're thinking of being in a triple in Mesa Court, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. If you want to be a triple in the tower, it would be in Middle Earth. Also, in terms of housing, if you're picking a roommate, I highly recommend trying to find someone that works with you and is compatible with you on Facebook, because if you try to do random, there's nothing wrong with doing random, but you can't really have a say in who you get. And if you get a weird roommate or a bad roommate in terms of like hygiene, they have a different sleep schedule compared to you. So if you want to have a roommate, try to reach out over social media and find someone that's compatible with you. That's my highest recommendation. So getting into the specifics about dorming and towers, someone asked whether or not you would pick a quad over a triple. And this year I picked a triple, mostly because I actually knew the girls that I was living with beforehand, so that was really nice. But one thing that kind of discouraged me from being in a quad my first year, even though I found some people that want to be in a quad, the biggest thing is that if you're starting your first year and you don't really know these people that you're going to live with, it can easily become like 3 against 1 or 2 against 2 in terms of drama. And if you live in a double, it's literally just you and the other person. So if there's ever was drama, at least it's only between you two. Also, I didn't really know about the floor plan in terms of like how the space worked, because there are 4 people living in a room and I didn't really know how big the room would be. And in terms of like just living in the triple and seeing the quads in the towers, the rooms were pretty spacious. They're able to have 4 wardrobes, 2 bunk beds, and 4 desks fit in there, so it's really big. I don't know, it's kind of up to you and your preference. Also, I'd like to add, someone asked me if there's any AC in the dorms. On the on-campus dorms, there are no ACs in the rooms, whether you're in the towers or the classics. You do need to bring your own fans. Another subtopic of housing is basically the meal plans that students can get while they're living in the dorms. There are 3 options: the 7-day, the 5-day, and the 100 swipe. And basically they have their own pros and cons. I'm going to talk about each individual one and hopefully give you different ideas of which plan is best for you. And also, one thing I would like to know is that these plans can be changed throughout the year, usually at the beginning of the quarter, just because it's easy to keep track of swipes that you use. And so if you do have a plan or you do want to change it, you can always change it whenever. So now the food plans are specifically for the Ant Eatery, the eatery that's in Mesa Court, and Brandywine, that's the eatery in Middle Earth. Now, both eateries are pretty good. I have no preference over which I like more. I actually think that they make the same food. They don't have the same menu on the same day, so if you eat at Ant Eatery and Brandywine the same day or something, they won't have the exact same food. All the plans you can eat at the Ant Eatery and Brandywine. You can swipe in at both of the eateries, so that's something you should know too. Now, the 7-day swipe. So basically this allows the student to have unlimited swipes during all days of the week. So it includes the weekends and the weekdays, and you can swipe in as many times as you want. One thing that comes with 7-day is $50 Flextime dollars. And what that is that it's money that you could use at the on-campus eateries besides the Ant Eatery and Brandywine. So Flextime is accessible to the Starbucks on campus. It's accessible for the food places in the student center, which has like Panda Express, Subway, Wendy's, and all those different places. It also allows you to use them at the Zot & Go, which is a small convenience store that's in the student center. Also, there's a small store right next to Brandywine. I don't know if it has a name yet, but there's a small store that you could buy snacks and your Flextime dollars work there too. And you could also use your Flextime dollars on the very first floor of the student store, which is called The Hill. It's like the bookstore area. So if you need like Scantron or something that's down there, you can use your Flextime there as well. Getting back to the 7-day plan, you can swipe in whenever you want during the 7 days, you get the Flextime, and you also get 10 guest swipes. Now the 5-day meal plan is basically the 7-day meal plan, but only during the weekdays. Basically the biggest difference between the 5-day and 7-day is that you can't swipe in on the weekends, and so you get the same amount of Flextime, which is $50, and you also get the 10 swipes. Now, the 100 swipe meal plan, it's basically you have 100 swipes on your card, and then you also get $75 of flex time plus the 10 guest swipes. So those are the different meal plans. I personally picked the 7-day meal plan, but I'm gonna talk right now about why I picked that and also the differences in choosing the 5-day and the 100-day. Well, mostly because I don't plan on cooking a lot, and also I don't go home a lot even though I'm an hour away. So if I had the 7-day meal plan, I can stay on campus and still be able to eat as many times as I want or whenever I want. And I know I can do that regardless if I go home or not. Whereas the 5-day meal plan, if you plan on going home on the weekends a lot or you like to cook and you can do that on the weekends, I recommend the 5-day. Also, that kind of goes for the 100-day. If you like cooking and you like making your own food, I recommend the 100-day plan. The only thing about the 100-day plan is that even though it's the cheapest meal plan you can have, it's really hard to use because you only have 100 swipes. And if you want to eat even just like a piece of fruit, or you just want to go in for a bowl of cereal, something really simple, it's cost a whole swipe. And so if you want a meal later on, like because that wasn't filling or whatever, you have to have another swipe. And so it's really like, it's kind of irritating that you have to keep track of how many meals you have and whether or not you can eat. Another thing I would like to add to the meal plans is that there's a to-go box system. And basically what that is, say you didn't want to stay in the eatery and you just want to grab some food and go back up to your room, or you know that you can't grab a meal later, so you want to get some food and save it for later. The to-go box system allows you to grab some food and take it out of that eatery. And so basically it's kind of a rental system. Both eateries have the to-go box system. And basically if you use a swipe, you can get the to-go box and like get a rain check, which is like a little business card that says that you can get a box if you turn it in and redeem it. Or you can just turn in your box and get a new one and just go like that. But one thing about the 100-day swipe is that if you want a to-go box, it costs a swipe. So that's something that I'd like to know about the to-go box and the 100-day. Also with the 5-day meal plan, you can still get the to-go box during like the week, during the weekdays. But if you want to get more food over the weekends, you can't because you don't have swipes for the weekend. Just quickly to add in, the FlexDine and guest swipes that you don't use roll over to the next quarter, and they don't roll over after the spring quarter ends. So whatever you use in the fall and winter quarter will roll over to the spring quarter. And what students like to do if they don't use everything, they either buy a lot of food from the student center because it's not an eatery or Brandywine food, to get rid of the FlexDine dollars. But if they have extra swipes, what students do, they actually sell them to other students who don't have a meal plan for like ranging $2 to $5, and that's what they do. So just want to add that in. So that's why I picked the 7-day, and those are some things to think about in choosing a meal plan. So yeah. So a whole different topic that I'm going to get into now is for classes and academics, which is enrolling into classes. And so some people have asked me about how do classes work, how do you enroll, do you have any recommendations on scheduling classes? So basically I'm going to answer some of those questions. So in terms of enrolling classes, because sometimes you have different choices of professors, what I recommend is looking up the professor and the class and whether or not it's offered different quarters and what other professors are teaching them, because sometimes a professor can be teaching it that is better than the other, but it could be at a different quarter. If it's possible for your flow chart of what classes you need to have before you graduate in 4 years, you might want to think about if you want a better professor or not. Ways that you can figure out if the professor is good is you look at their website, you ask people around, you can go on to Reddit. Reddit's a really good source for finding out different professors and classes. Also, you could go on Rate My Professor, but Rate My Professor can be kind of iffy. So I highly recommend finding out if the professor is good through Reddit and see if there's any options that you can take a better professor at a different time. Also, a question that I was asked before is that how do 8 a.m.s work? Do you need to take a class at 8 a.m. or whatever? As a first year, most people will have a lot of 8 a.m.s because you have to take something that's called general education classes or GEs. And so since everybody has to take that, most of them are kind of offered in the morning. And so since everybody in your first year has to take those, 8 a.m.s do exist and they kind of suck, but because you're coming out of high school, you kind of you kind of have a mindset like, oh, I'm used to it, I did it in high school, and then you can do it in college. But honestly, that mindset doesn't really sit well with a lot of people, just because there's an option that you can take it later, but sometimes another class overlaps that and you have to take the 8 a.m. over the other one just because that's how your schedule works, and it sucks. It honestly really sucks. Also, something that I'd like to say about scheduling classes that really sucks is that you can't overlap any classes at all. Unless you get a push code from a professor or an advisor, which is very rare, you can't ever really overlap a class, even if the class is optional to go to, which really sucks. So my advice is to plan out your schedule as much as you can, make multiple schedules, and see what really works with you and what your time preferences are, because I know 8 a.m. suck, but if you can possibly get them at a different time, that's always nice too. So in terms of planning your schedules and making different options that you can use, I recommend Ant Planner, Zotcourse, and Peter's Almanac, and also Google Calendar. So Google Calendar is really good if you already have a set schedule and you're ready and you want to share it with your friends and they can see it. But in terms of just planning your classes, Ant Planner, Zotcourse, and Peter's Almanac are really good. In terms of actually registering classes, as soon as your enrollment window opens, try to get on there, because a few seconds or even like minutes can really determine whether you get the schedule you really want and whether you can't, because every 15 minutes as the enrollment windows start opening from 8 a.m. to like 5 p.m., like so many people are trying to get the classes and everything. So you really have to like know the class code, know what schedule you're really trying to go for, and really just work with the system. It really sucks, but that's how UCI is, and that's my biggest that's my biggest tip for you, is to plan and schedule as much as you can. Also, to add to planning and everything, is that if you do have classes that line up at the same time of every day, it's kind of nice, just because you get into a routine and habit of going to classes at the same time, and like try to limit the big gaps, because you think that like, oh, I have a 5-hour gap between this class and this class, I can like nap, I can study and everything. Unless you're really diligent with your time and you're really good at time managing, I wouldn't have really big gaps, just because it's really tempting to like take a nap, get distracted, and realize like, oh, I don't really want to do this. Like, it gives you too much time to rest and not get back on that high horse, if you know what I mean. So try to limit the big gaps, but also try to watch out for like classes that are only 10 minutes apart, because sometimes the building is across campus and you have maybe a realistic like 12-minute commute over 10 minutes. And so that can be like really big if you have like exams one right after the other. So make sure you know where the classes are in terms of like location as well. One question I actually got about UCI is, how big is the workload and how does it work for like weekends and everything? So me personally, I'm a computer engineer, so I recommend studying about 4 to 5 hours per class each week. So that's a lot of math. So I don't know how many hours in a month, but it's really up to the student, just because I need more help than you do, or I need less help than you do. It's really different in terms of majors and also how the student is. So you have to take my answer with a grain of salt. And so also the workload might be different, just because you have different events, you have different plans for the weekend and everything. You have to plan according to what's coming and what you have to do. So if you have a really big project and you have something on the weekend, I would try to get as much as you can before the weekend done, just because you're not gonna want to stress while you're like at an event or like having fun or anything. So workload is it varies between majors and the student. So the best thing I can recommend is time management and prioritize well. Another topic that I was asked about was changing your major. Mostly I'm going to talk about engineering changing your major, because that's what I kind of know more about, but this kind of goes for anyone who wants to change their major. So someone asked if they can change their major during SPOP. The easy answer is no. They're not allowed. You cannot change your major during SPOP. You can like ask about changing your major at SPOP, but you can't actively change it there. What you can do for changing your major, especially if you already know what you want to change into, is you have to email your advisor saying who you are, what classes you are in and what classes you need, and also what your GPA is. So basically they know whether or not you're actually able to change majors. You also want to add to that email the head of the school or major you're trying to get into, because different majors have the head of the department. So you might want to also include them in your email to the advisor. Deciding to change your major before school actually starts your first year is probably easier than when you have to change it during school year or after your first year, just because you haven't started your classes yet. So they're like, oh, since you even haven't started, you can still be on time. So it's pretty easy for that, especially if you have a high GPA. If you change your major after your first year starts, it's still possible and you still can do it. The only thing is that you might have to take some of the classes for that school to get into that major, if that makes sense. So you have to like have a certain amount of classes or units in that field before you actually get into that field. It's really weird, but that's how it works. And so that's really how you change your major. The last topic that I'm going to talk about is like transportation and vehicles at UCI. And so someone asked me if I recommend bringing a bike to campus. Me personally, that's cool and everything. I don't personally have a bike. I have a skateboard, but even a skateboard is kind of difficult because there's so many rules and regulations on having a bike or a skateboard on campus. Like, you can't be on your bike or skateboard unless you're in the designated lane on Inner Ring Road by Aldrich Park. And even then it's like pretty trafficky because everybody has to be on that. Also, you can't be on Outer Ring Road between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., which is kind of ridiculous because that's when classes are and that's when you want to ride your transportation to get there faster. So that really sucks. So that's all the topics I really want to talk about. Most of these kind of only relate to first years or anyone who's like new to UCI. If you have any more questions or if you're still confused about some things, feel free to leave a comment down below or message me on Instagram. I will definitely respond. But yeah, that's all the topics I had today. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe. If you don't, that's chill too. But that's it for this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!